Yeah, so tonight I'm going to talk to you about cave diving. It's not so much about, it's more an intro just for those people that doesn't know what cave diving is and why we do it and things like that. Okay, so on the agenda, get over there. Okay. Good. We're going to do a bit of an introduction, just what is cave diving history, very short, just we did the first cave dives and stuff like that. And then my favorite part, gear. What gear we need and why we need it and why we have so many different configurations and so many extra special gear that we use. And then just a small glance into my personal journey in cave diving and what it means to me and why I do it. Okay, so on an introduction thing is cave diving is a form of technical diving, scuba diving. The techniques and equipment we use are specially designed and specially used in cave diving. We don't use it on other places. When we dive deep in open water, we've got different kind of equipment that we use when we go in open water. Okay, so technical diving is actually always regarded as an overhead environment, but when you're not in an overhead environment, it's really a theoretical idea of ceilings that you can't pass until you've finished all your deco and things like that. Okay, we're not going to go into very technical stuff tonight. Okay, we don't get paid to do this, so it's really, we do it because we love it, and it stays a recreational activity. Okay, so cave diving history. It's the slide coming up now. That's the kind of gear the first people in 1935 used to do their first cave dive. It's quite epic. They used brass helmets and the chest plates, the canvas suits, lead boots, and they were surface supplied with oxygen and air and whatever was in there. And that was at Wiki Hole. The first people that did the first cave dive was a woman called Penelope Powell and Graham Balcom. And that was more of a crawl than a cave dive, because we've got other cave divers here as well. Here, that's that heavy. There's no way you're going to just float through a cave. So initially, England has been doing caving for about hundreds of years before that. And the water bodies always stop these explorers from looking at where the cave is going and what it's doing. So cave diving they didn't do this because they wanted to do a cave dive. It wasn't even a thought in their head. It was, we want to see what's beyond this water, if a cave is extending and whatever. And as a caver, I think that's kind of stuff we always think about, is what is beyond this water body. So that is where they did the first cave dive in Wiki Hole in 1935. Okay, so cave diving also eventually evolved 1940, 1950s, 60s. Sheik Exley was born in 1965, so not born, he did his first cave dive in 1965. And from there on, they started building on all these ideas of cave equipment and cave safe kind of procedures that we follow, like the cave arrow. In the beginning, they actually used duct tape that they stick to the lines in triangular shapes that shows to the exit, so they knew how to get out of the cave again. And they used to call them dwarf line markers, after the guy Louis Holzendorf, who actually started thinking about, hey guys, we got to get out of the cave as well. You know, it's nice and all that to be in a cave. The thing is also, a lot of people reeled in and they reeled out, so there was always somebody on the reel going. But when somebody wants to get out of the cave before the reeler turns around, you kind of hope that he followed in the right direction. So Forrest Wilson eventually invented the cave arrow that we still use today. I actually brought some, but then I'll show you what's the difference between cave arrows, cookies, and the non-directionals that we usually use. Okay, so Sheik Exley, he is regarded as the father of cave diving, because he did a lot of cave diving, and he knew that there was a lot of things that we could improve on. So like a continuous line, there must always be a continuous line. If you jump from the main line, you have to have a line that actually goes all the way out. Okay, so but just as any other sport, over time, things have changed and we have evolved and technology has improved. We're diving with much better gear today, lighter, definitely no lead boots where we're diving. It's okay, now the next part is the gear part. So gear, we have lots of gear that we use. Okay. Why are you laughing? This is my gear room. It's a women's gear room, that's why. It's a part of my gear room, just to show that we actually do, it's gear that you accumulate over a huge period of time. It's not stuff that you just one day decide, I'm a cave diver and I'm going to buy all this stuff. As you qualify and you become better and you become more qualified and whatever, you start buying gear to fit into that little section of your life. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is soft gear. Okay, so we all know that what wetsuits are, and we know, I don't know, dry suits, undersuits, stuff like that. It's very much the kind of protection we use when we dive in caves or in any body of water. And yeah, it does get influenced by the water temperature, the duration of the dive, obviously. You can't do a 3-hour dive in 25 degrees water, which sounds like nice warm water, but your body's temperature drops. So even if you're in mild hypothermia, it's not a nice place to be. So yes, the objective of the dives, what is your plans regarding the dive? Location of the water body, is it deep in a cave, or is it like you get in the water here and the cave is there? And then obviously personal preferences. Some people just prefer not to dive with dry suits. Some people don't want to dive with wetsuits. So when we choose undergarments is really the thing that keeps you warm. We've got undergarments for winter and undergarments for summer. So I dive my dry suit winter, summer, doesn't matter. I always dive with a dry suit, but I change my undersuit to be lighter and whatever. Okay, so with your feet, obviously scuba boots, socks or rock boots. I prefer my dry suits all have socks, so I dive with rock boots, especially with some of the terrain that we encounter. It's just nice and hard, so you don't hurt your feet while walking to the water, especially with heavy gear on your back. Hoodies is a definite yes, because you lose most of your heat through your head, so you obviously want to keep your head warm. Gloves is not just to look fancy and that. We usually cut our gloves. I do mine for dexterity. But when you start diving dry gloves, there's no way you're cutting those, because that's supposed to keep your hands warm, especially in extremely cold water. And heated vests is something you will dive in ice dives or up in Russia, water caves. That water is 4 degrees, which is really, really cold. I haven't dived there yet. I've been trying since the lockdown to get there, but it was kind of, yeah, and now, I mean, really. Okay, so the next section is fins and masks. Mask is a very, very personal thing. You have to go there into a dive shop and get a mask that fits you. Okay, some people like big masks. I've learned over the years, my face, no matter what I do, is too small. I use low profile masks, which is really nice for when you have to equalize. It's very easy to equalize and clear a mask if you've got a low profile mask. I've put in here that the biggest mistake most divers do, especially because we always carry 2 masks with us when we go for a cave dive. And the reason is, if a mask breaks, it can really be having all that cold water, especially if it's a cold water cave, cold water in your face. It's not a problem really, but it feels like your eyes starts freezing up like this. So you want a mask that is either better or the same as the mask that you are used to wearing. And the reason for that is, if a mask breaks, it's a stressed situation. And the moment you get stressed, you actually want something that you are going to be comfortable will work. Usually the strap. It's usually the strap. I had a lens pull out once. Yeah, but it does happen, and it's not that you mishandle your gear in that. It's just sometimes age or the way that they just, that's what they do. They break. Yeah. So we use, for cave diving, we usually use short, hard fins. We don't use these long, flappy with fins. And the reason being, you want small, powerful kicks. So we usually use a frog kick in caves, or a backward kick and a helicopter kick. It's all to maneuver yourself through a cave without having to push on the walls. And because a lot of caves, maybe, like especially in Mexico, there's a lot of formations and stuff. So you don't want to damage it or break it. And, you just want to look at them, take photos of them, and leave without breaking parts of it. Okay, so we use these small, very hard fins, but I think the design is really jet fins from Scuba Pro. That's the most, and then all the other manufacturers just kind of copied the idea. If I ever dive with a wetsuit, I've got Scuba Pro Sport, which is the same kind of idea. It's a short, relatively hard fin, but it's not as heavy as the jet fins, because those jet fins are so heavy. They're about 1.5 kilos each. But it's really nice with the dry suit because they kind of keep your legs down. If you're cold, you kind of want to put air in places where like your legs to keep them warm. Okay, so that's basically our fins and masks, very important parts of what we're doing in cave diving. Okay, so the next section is really diving different configurations. So back-mounted cylinders, a lot of people dive them still. They're a good place to start if you ever decide to go technical in diving. The cylinders can either be connected with a manifold. I used to dive manifolds. That's that little green knob that you see on the gear. Usually dive with, or you can dive it independently. I know there are a lot of people that still dive it independently, and it's personal choice. Okay, and one is not better than the other one. It's just a personal choice, or how you've been trained, and now you've decided to do it. So then when we go on deco dives, usually the cylinders will be slinged on our left-hand side. We call them stage cylinders. Okay, so a few things that it's not nice about a back mount. They're very big and bulky, heavy gear, so they're not always easy to access a lot of smaller caves. And when your passages are very narrow, low, it's kind of hard not to damage the roof. And so the selection for caves where you'll go in, especially if you go to Mexico, they're very strict. They see what gear you use, and they will take you to caves that is conducive for those kind of the gear that you carry. Okay, so when you're in a cave, open circuit, rule of thirds, everything in caves work in thirds, so strictly applies. Third in, third out, and a third spare for your buddy if anything goes wrong. Okay, the next configuration that we're going to look at is side mount. Side mount is a configuration that has really become very popular for many reasons. I see people in the ocean diving with side mount, and it's really because the gear is so easy to get in, and you don't have to carry those heavy cylinders all the time outside, because you put them in the water and then you go clip them on and then you go diving. And especially for people with knee problems or back problems or that, they still want to dive, so they moved over to side mount gear because it's just so much lighter in the water to carry. Okay, when we do deco on side mount, very difficult if you don't have a lot of real estate, because those cylinders, your side mount cylinders are on the left and the right, and the bailouts, or not the bailouts, the stages will just be in the center, and then if there's space at the back, you'll start clipping on there. Diving aluminium cylinders, which I dive, can be tricky because the more you breathe from them, they actually get lighter and they start lifting. Steel cylinders don't do that, but steel cylinders are incredibly heavy, and they tend to like plow you into the silt or the rocks and stuff because they're just too heavy. You know, you really got to have a good lift on your wing to get you off. So yeah, in sidebound we just move the cylinders around on our center belt so that they move down. Okay. Open circuit rules, obviously, in this case also applies, the rule of thirds. The ideal thing about side mount, and the reason why I really love side mount diving, is it is very small. Your profile in the water is incredibly small, even with bailouts. It's a very small profile. So you get into smaller spaces, you can do smaller caves. And then obviously when I did a survey course in Mexico, and that worked perfectly because you had space to move. And yeah, it's just because you can work in such a small space and have ample air with you, it's ideal to work for work situations like surveys underwater. Okay, then the next one is closed circuit rebreathers. Okay, so that is also something that has become quite popular. Hey, it's a nice thingy to dive. Okay, so closed circuit rebreathers comes in side mount configuration as well as back mount. I've dived quite a few units in my time as a cave diver. Bailout cylinders, we don't use stages, we use bailouts, because if your machine is at a point where you can't dive it anymore, it's broken or flooded, or one of the very bad things that can happen to rebreathers, we have bailouts, and that's what we do on them. We bail out to them, and then we're on open circuit and we make our way out. Any emergency ever in a cave is up and out, you know. Okay, so dive planning on a closed circuit rebreather is obviously a little bit more intricate, because now you have to think about when you go open circuit, when you have to bail out. So you have to have a bailout plan, but you also have to have a plan for your rebreather. So eventually you've got like 2 or 3 plans that you take with on a simple kind of dive, just to make sure that whatever happens, if you lose one of your cylinders along the way, because what we do to make our swim lighter, we clip off on the line some of our bailouts, and usually just take the bottom gas with us. So when you go, you must just find the exact same route back, otherwise you're losing that gas on your way out. So there is a lot of considerations. It is training is very important. We don't dive beyond our limits. We dive the way to the limit that we've been trained. And sometimes when you're with somebody really experienced, you will go and maybe push the limits a little bit further, but usually preferably with somebody that's at an instructor level kind of person. A rebreather can give you a false sense of safety because you've always got something to breathe. But if you're not always sure what you're breathing, it can be catastrophic. So yes, it can give you a false sense of security or safety. So yes, we do like to know exactly what's your partial pressure always at all the times. And it is also a rule of rebreathers. The first thing you see in that book is always know your PO2, which is your partial pressure of oxygen, to make sure that you are breathing a breathable, life-sustaining mix. Okay. Rebreathers are also back-mounted rebreathers are very bulky, they're incredibly heavy, and they've got a lot of little thingies to them that is very fragile. So when you do like real bundu bashing with it, not always the best thing. Side mount rebreathers, on the other hand, you can do bundu bashing with them. They're quite hard and hardy. Even with all the technology in them, they just started making rebreathers much better and stronger. And I've seen stuff falling off rocks, and it's like, is that thing still going to work? And yeah, it actually started up and it works. Okay, so next section is like our additional gear. Lights, primary lights, always one really good light with you and 2 backups. One backup always in your pocket and one clipped on. It's just, if a light goes, even if you charge it and that, anything can go wrong in the water. You can snag your umbilical cord and it can break the light off and you lose the light. Like I said, also, any emergency, even if you lose a light, because the light is very important down there. If you don't have a light, you don't know where you're going, whatever. Okay, so if a light goes, it's a out. You know, you have to turn around and go. Okay, reels. We use those are the red and blue ones hanging there. The red ones we call primary lights. The blue ones, it's usually a jump light, a jump reel. A primary reels is what we use to go long distances. Jump reels is exactly what it does. You jump from one line to another line, or you jump from a line to go and explore a section that maybe doesn't have anything in it. And you just go and see if there's anything, or you want to go and look at something. And then we have safety spools always in your pocket. Should you lose all your lights and the line, then you follow procedures with the safety spool to find the line again and get out. Okay, so line markers, we use directional arrows. Those are the ones we spoke about right in the beginning. Looks like a little triangle. Let me show you. Yeah. Let me just take it out so I can show you what it looks like. So the little arrows are these little, they look like this. So they basically clip onto the line. Okay. You flip the line over and like that, and it's on the line. But the arrow side always shows you the quickest way to get out. Okay. In places like Mexico, where they do, when there's like 100 lines in one direction, I promise you, I've seen it, that there are so many lines going in, you don't even know which line to follow. This is, you'll use cookies to mark your line, to make sure that you know which line to follow. Cookies, we always talk about but come over to the dark side, we've got cookies here. These are the cookies they are talking about. So you'll see mine is marked 4 and 3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I know that when I pass the cookie number 3, I'm more or less that far away from the entrance, or that far away from where I need to jump to another line. Or, you know, that's just how you start reading the lines. It's like driving on the highway and you've got all these signs that shows you where's Durban, and you know, so, or be aware there's a turn here, whatever. So we'll mark the lines. Okay, then we've got non-directionals as well, which we really, it's a very personal thing whether you want to use cookies or non-directionals, because non-directionals, which is this, it doesn't show a direction, but you can use it personally by marking it in a certain way to show a direction for you personally and not for anybody else in the game. We usually use them for surveying as well. We usually just put a note on the survey line, please do not remove, because we survey on lines. Okay, so obviously these are the type of line markers that we use. Okay, the different, just the difference between all of them when we talk about directional arrows or cookies or non-directionals. Okay, so that's it for that part. We also always carry a slate with us, which is just a little plastic thingy that we write on, notes for one another or for yourself. We don't, okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, and more here. Okay. I've got other sections that I didn't photograph, okay? Okay, so in cylinders, we usually have LE80s, which is usually bailouts, stages, or side-mount cylinders. I try and keep everything apart because some of the bailouts are very rich in trimix, you know, high percentages of helium in that. So you want to keep it one side and neatly blocked off at the top in that. So LE40s are the smaller version. I usually use it when I just quickly want to go and look at something, or if I'm doing a light dive and I just take one LE40 if I'm doing a light dive on a rebreather or something, and it's not really, not deco, no, nothing like that, just a head clearing kind of thing. We usually use that. Okay, so 2 liters is what I use in my rebreathers or rebreather now. And the 1.5s we usually go off board, which is a little cylinder that just goes on the side because we don't use our bailouts to inflate our dry suits or our wings. We use off-board cylinders for that. Dive computers. I dive with 2 tip computers. I've got shear waters. One is integrated into my rebreather. So I dive, that is, you can actually see the cells and everything on that computer. When I dive side mount, I'll dive with one on each arm, and the one is just a backup. So if the one goes, you've got the other one that is still calculating deco, and that even though you've done your dive planning, you still kind of look at your computer and make sure that you're in line with your deco obligations. Cave diving helmet, that little one hanging there. I use it usually when surveying. You need your hands free, so usually just put your light on your helmet, and you've got hands free and light, and you can do your work. Okay. On our regulator sets, that's the regulator is first stage and the second stage that we usually put on the cylinder where you breathe from. So that's the thing that goes in your mouth. So we've got sets for our back mounts, sets for side mount, and then your bailouts and stages, and they all get configured differently. You can't configure a stage like you configure a bailout because we use them differently. Okay, so when you and everybody's got their own personal taste on how they do it and where they want it on their cylinder. Okay, so more specialized here. Okay, so no, but this is specialized here.
How much does it weigh and how much does it cost?
We'll talk about that now. Okay, so right at the top, you'll see a little box with a little arrow on. That's a Nemo. Okay, so that is the newest kind of technology that you can buy for surveying. Although a lot of scooters nowadays, and I know that there's guys that's got those scooters, they just fly through a cave and it kind of surveys the cave. It's so depressing. It takes away the fun of this because it's so nice to go into a cave and actually survey it and do the line work and look where you're going to go and do your planning and all that. So that's really nice if you've got that. But yes, there are guys that they've got a thing that they call the sunfish that actually did a huge survey at Dragons. They surveyed it right to the end with the project that was going. And there was divers in the water, but really just to look after the underwater drone that did all the work. So it makes our world smaller, and it makes it like one of these days we're just going to sit at a computer and maybe just watch all these things from there, and it takes away that joy of diving and the joy of planning and the excitement of driving there. Okay, yeah. So that's a cave scooter. Oh no, not a cave scooter. It's just a scooter. You can use it in open water too. A lot of people dive with it in the sea because of currents. Just makes it much easier if you don't have to fight the current to get to a wreck or something like that. We use it in caves, sometimes very big caves, but it's also got a lot of dangers to it because you can penetrate with a cave scooter. You can penetrate 10 times the distance that you could just by swimming. So if you've got a problem at the end, you better hope that you've got enough gas to swim yourself out with your scooter, because so there's a lot of planning going into that as well. It's not just get on a scooter and let's go. You got to think about these things, that you are in an overhead environment and you need to get out at some point. You need to make sure that you can get out. So planning is very important. Okay, then that's just a little camera set that I've got. I use it, take photos if I feel like it which I don't often do. And the reason being that I started when we went to Mexico the first time, I actually started and I thought, no, I'm missing everything because I'm so busy watching where I'm lightning and that I'm missing the whole personality of this cave. And I decided, well, then other people must pay and go and dive and look at themselves, because it just really takes away a lot of my joy in diving. Yeah, okay. So we've got another side of gear as well. So duct tape is important. As you heard right in the beginning, if you don't have arrows with you, you can make arrows. Okay, so also with a question that is always asked is, dry suits kind of seals us inside. In a wetsuit, you can maybe just quickly pee, but you can't do it in a dry suit. So we've got what we call catheters that we use, male and female catheters. It is not the most glamorous sport when it comes to these things, but that beats a nappy by far, I promise you. Okay, and it's always good to have your own gas analyzer, especially because in South Africa, as many of us divers know, most of our technical diving is remote. So we fill our gases at reputable places, and then we go out to our site, and it's good to analyze there. Or if you want to decant, that's decanting is from one cylinder to another. We just kind of top up cylinders, and that's always good to be able to analyze your gas, mark it, and know exactly what you're taking into the water. Okay, so that is that for gear. Okay. I could do more. Yes, this is the short version. Okay, so now more on a personal level with cave diving and caving as such. We think that, okay, I'll just read this. Okay, so the depth of darkness to which you can descend and still live is an exact measure of the height to which you can aspire to reach. And it's something that really rings true for me, in the sense that, what is darkness really? I mean, it's the absence of light. Darkness is actually very fragile. It's little things like this that I think about when I'm diving, and I'm thinking, shit, darkness is actually really fragile, because darkness never invades. We invade it, and we bring light to it to expose beautiful formations or beautiful walls or geology or stuff like that. We are the invaders of darkness. And one thing that I've seen with caves is, I was just at Bushman's 2 weeks ago, and you start falling into that darkness, and it looks differently at you than the darkness of Komati. It feels like every cave really has a very different kind of energy and personality, really, to that specific cave. And every cave has got its own beauty. And I think on a deeper level, it changes you as a person, because you start seeing that whatever you become down there, it is what you are up there. Because up here, we've got a lot of distortions. We've got noise pollution, people talking, and noise of the city, and noise of offices, and all those kind of things. And you've got so many visual distractions that your world really revolves around what's out there. And when you get into a place that simplistic, you have to fall back onto who you are and who you have become over the years of whatever you've been doing. And it's really a lesson in life for me to know that that darkness has taught me to be truer to who I am, and truer to what I dream of becoming, and truer to the people around me, because you look at people differently, you see things, you experience things, because you open for it, and darkness really opened me up for it. So I think in a way darkness is kind of a medicine, in a sense that a lot of times when I dived, I would switch off all my lights and just be there, because it's the most calming, most serene place, most quiet place, especially on a rebreather. I just want to add that. It's very quiet. It becomes incredibly quiet. You can actually hear yourself breathe underwater. It's absolutely beautiful. It is life-changing. And I found that even in caving, just try caving. You know? So at a point in your life, you've got a chance to go and be with that darkness and see what it does for you. It's quite scary in the beginning, I reckon. I don't know. I've never really felt scared of darkness. It was actually a place that always called me. I was always drawn to that. My mother used to take us caving when we were young, but that was like to Sugwala and those places. And then they switch off the lights. It's like, oh, this is nice. So yeah, eventually you fall into that place of it brings comfort. And you know, like I say, the best thing about darkness, it's non-evasive. It doesn't evade you. You're still a little light out there, but yeah, it brings a calmness to you as a person. The places I've dived, some of the best dives I've had was in the most inappropriate places. I loved Mexico. I was there with a group, and we did quite a lot of diving and took a lot of photos and had a lot of fun. And the second time I went, I decided, well, you know what? It's nice to be there, but there's people that are so knowledgeable there, you know. So I'm not afraid to still learn. I like learning new things. So went to Mexico the second time, did a survey course and also a couple of workshops on lines. Why do they mark their lines like they do? Why is there certain lines that for miles you swim and there's just nothing on that line, and then there's just one arrow showing that way? You know, it's like, why? And then, you know, you start learning how they mark their caves and why they do it. So yeah, it's very interesting to learn from other people, because their caves are very different to ours. Their caves are started dry, and it's got beautiful formations in it, you know, like stalactites and stalagmites, bright white. Not all of them. Some of them are quite dark, but the enormity of the caves always struck me. You know, you've got this little pool, barely two people can fit into it, and then you go into the first chamber, and it's like, oh, open, you know, and beautiful white. And then you've got salt water that runs in some of the caves, and when you get into that, it's like a different color than top water. So it's amazing to see these light shows and how darkness just complements everything. But then it got flooded. Okay, so in South Africa, we've got like really deep, a very big chamber-like kind of diving. We don't have those beautiful passages, and you can't really get lost in these caves. It's go down, you come up, you know. Well, that's a short and sweet version of it. Okay. So yeah, but yes, I did enjoy Mexico, but I also know that South African cave divers are different. We are different than them because we've got different conditions that we dive. They don't, a lot of them still dive wetsuits and stuff. The water is considered to be warm. I don't think it's warm. Second time I went, I took my dry suit because I was freezing on the first trip with only a wetsuit. Okay, so basically that's it. I don't have much more to, I've got lots to tell you, but but at this point, I think we can go over to questions if anybody is interested.
You have some pictures of what sort of things you've seen. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Before you answer that, if you can just say to share the question with the guys online.
Yes.
Otherwise, I don't
okay.
always hear it.
Okay. Your name? Mark just asked if I've got pictures of all the nice places I've been here. On the screen, there's one of Wetsgat. Quite recently, we took all the lights we had just to light up this cave and really capture the beauty of this cave at the top. So yes, I do take some pictures at some times.
So can I just describe this picture?
Okay, this
So
picture.
It's dark. The water is way deep inside the cave.
Yes, where we are at the moment, where you see the bright lights, that is kind of about I would say about 15 meters away from the shore, but about 20 or odd away from the wall. So if you look in the right-hand corner, that's where you actually go down. It's quite confusing because there are a section on the other side that you can also go in, but that is it's a dead end. You know, you've got to get more to the.
It's a lot of dry cane to get to that.
Oh no. At the moment,
Just say to the
Okay.
guys on Zoom.
on this last photo, Selena just wanted to know how much dry caving are we doing to get to where we are in the water. At the moment, it's basically through the entrance. It's a bit of a boulder choke, but not a bad one. You know, you can actually, but it's a bit of a climb down, about three pitches down, which is about all in all maybe 5 meters of climbing down, and then you're on this platform kind of thing. It's not a platform. Yeah, but no, the beach is gone. Yeah, on this photo, it's gone. It actually came up some more. So you've just got a whole lot of rocks. It's not a platform. I always tell people it's a walk-in. They don't agree with me because one guy pitched with his flockies and it didn't entirely work out for him. But yes, it is a proper cave. Got to have a cave helmet and proper lights, proper shoes. And then on this section is where we kitted up and went into the water.
Anybody else have a question? Yeah. Jonah.
Is this sort of an ecological license cave for you guys?
Um,
Or they very ecologically?
Okay, your name?
Jonah.
Jonna wants to know if there's any ecological life, biological life really that we see. Not really. Mostly at the entrances. I have seen cave fish deeper in, but they're usually white, no eyes. You know, but you don't often see them. You might see some worms sometimes.
Bushman's got two,
Yes, yeah. Francois just mentioned that Bushman's has got two types of shrimp living there. Yeah, but not necessarily deeper in. It's usually, you really got to look for them if you want to see them. And it's usually on the sides. Bushman's is like, you've got the sides up to about 40 and then it's, you know, so I don't know what's there at the bottom. I'll ask Karin to go there and find out.
Anybody else?
Michelle, I'm just asking a little bit more about you and what you do. And when you talk about doing surveys, is your diving your income generator or is it a hobby?
The question here is, okay, so sorry, Michelle wants to know if it's my job to do this and the surveys and stuff. No, it's not my job. I'm an admin clerk.
Okay, so
Just,
how much is the equipment cost?
no, the equipment is very expensive. The reason why it's so expensive is I think the deeper you go, the longer you go, you need equipment that is foolproof. You know, I'm not going to risk my life on a regulator that is not designed to withstand proper pressures from deeper down. And I think Karin will agree with me that we really spend a lot of money on dive gear, and it's all because we want to be safe. We don't do this kind of diving because we have a death wish. We do it because we want to live and we want to survive the dives. That's an interesting thing about cave diving is that most people that do cave diving are not thrill seekers. We're not thrill seekers. We're actually very calm, rustige mensies. Yeah, we're not thrill seekers. We're actually very calm people. You'll see them. They don't talk much. They do talk a lot, especially when it comes to gear and be in a crowd and we talk to one another. You've got a lot to say, but usually people are very quiet kind of people on one side.
I'm actually not answering your question about how much it costs. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Well, you can look at, you know, I'll tell it in somebody else's words. This one guy once said to me, if you see a tech diver getting down those steps with a rebreather, with a scooter, and dry suit and all of that, you're looking at about half a bomb. Just in gear. Yeah. And then Karin will know what it costs to do 100+ meter dive just on helium. That's why I dive rebreathers. Because on open circuit, it is insanely expensive. And you get to a point where you say, am I going to go rebreather and pay less for gas? Because eventually those gas bills pays this rebreather. Or am I going to stay on open circuit? And it's a choice.
Guys, we're just running out of time a little bit. So if I can just ask Lewis, are there any online questions?
Yeah, there are a couple. Hanley asked, why do you do it? Which definitely Karin answered very well at the time. Also, she said, what is the most fabulous cave you've dived? I think Karin also asked that.
What is the most fabulous cave you dived?
Fabulous. Well, I think at this point, I recently did Bushmans. That is still very much in my mind. It's very difficult to get past Bushmans at this point. So at this point, I would definitely say Bushmans. It's just that darkness, that feeling, that the way that she looked back, you can't explain it to people. It actually wants to make me cry. It's really beautiful there. And the work that you do to get all the gear down, I think you're on such a high the whole time. It's amazing. It's really an amazing place. At this point, that's my favorite.
Lisa asked, tell us about your record dive, but I think she was thinking about the other Karin.
Other Karin, come here.
Yeah.
Come sit here right next to me so that you can tell the people.
Sorry, what was the question?
I want you to tell me about.
Tell us about your record dive.
Oh gosh, that's another 45-minute discussion. But yeah, so that was a
Come
dive I
to the
did.
frame a little bit so we can see you.
Yeah, move this way.
There we go. So that was a dive I did in March last year. It's something I'd taken many years, probably close to 10 years to prepare for. It's been almost a lifelong goal of mine, very nerve-wracking experience. Previous record was 221 meters, so I only need to get to 222 meters to break the record. But my target was 250, but unfortunately didn't quite make 250, so I turned at 236 meters because I had some challenges on that dive, and I got entrapped in line at 236 meters, so it did cause some problems. But lived to tell the tale, and of course to dive another day. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I think we're out of time for tonight.